And the terms of the lease say that as long as Prince Andrew maintains the upkeep of the property and the repairs and the renovations, then he is within the terms of the lease, and therefore it is very difficult to remove him or for him to move.
Behind the stately walls of Royal Lodge, life for staff under Andrew and Sarah Ferguson was far removed from the polished image the public once imagined. Former employees now recount a household dominated by strict rules, sudden outbursts, and an expectation of absolute obedience. With Andrew stripped of all titles and honors and ordered to leave Royal Lodge, these accounts take on a renewed significance, offering a glimpse into the inner workings of the royal residence and the power dynamics between the former Duke and Duchess of York. Staff frequently described Andrew as difficult, short-tempered, and often rude. A former palace maid recalled that while other royals were formal yet kind, Andrew stood out for his impatience and sense of entitlement.
Prince Andrew is being stripped of his prince title, but why now? Buckingham Palace said the king has today initiated a formal process, and his younger brother will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He gave up his other titles earlier this month, including the Duke of York, after facing questions about his private.
Minor mistakes, like a breakfast tray slightly misaligned or a curtain drawn incorrectly, could trigger sharp reprimands, leaving staff anxious and fearful. Buckingham Palace recently announced that Andrew will formally lose his prince title, now to be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, after previously giving up other titles, including the Duke of York, amid questions over his private affairs. Insiders describe Andrew as volatile. "You could hear him shouting before you saw him," said one former aide. Even protection officers noted his arrogance and a temper that flared over the smallest details. In an environment where strict royal protocol was expected, Andrew created his own rules, often far more rigid than anyone anticipated. One unusual example was his obsession with teddy bears. He reportedly owned around 72, all dressed in sailor suits or uniforms.
Yeah, so Tom Quinn's released this really kind of humorous book in a way, talking about, the lives of the staff at the palaces. What is it really like being, a maid or a butler to a member of the royal family? And unsurprisingly, some of the kind of crazy stuff in there was about the staff who work for the Duke of York.
Staff had to arrange them on his bed each morning from largest to smallest, following a precise order. Misplacement of even a single bear could lead to reprimands. Tom Quinn's book humorously highlights the lives of palace staff, showing the challenges of being a maid or butler to royals, with some of the most absurd anecdotes involving the Duke of York. New employees even underwent training to correctly arrange his bears, guided by a laminated diagram on the bedside table, which one former guard likened to a battlefield map. Each evening, the bears were repositioned around the room, sometimes stacked carefully in the unused fireplace. While it may sound absurd to outsiders, for staff at Royal Lodge, this level of control was just part of the daily routine, reflecting Andrew's perfectionism and need for dominance. Staff frequently described Royal Lodge as less a home and more a military-style operation, where every action was governed by a precise and unyielding set of rules. Nothing was left to chance. Clothes had to be folded to an exact specification, shoes aligned perfectly, and breakfast served according to strict routines. Even the smallest deviation, a misaligned teacup or a slightly tilted picture frame, could prompt a public scolding. Mistakes were rarely forgiven, and any employee who dared to question or contradict Andrew risked immediate dismissal. One insider noted that he treated staff not as collaborators or members of a household team, but as subordinates whose sole purpose was to obey. Their voices mattered little, their opinions even less. This created an atmosphere of constant vigilance, where every word and gesture was carefully measured. Employees lived in a perpetual state of uncertainty, never knowing whether the Andrew they encountered would be polite and composed or short-tempered and explosive. Many staff confessed privately that they had long preferred employment elsewhere, far from the relentless tension that defined life at Royal Lodge. Sarah Ferguson's presence in the household, while less volatile, added a complicated layer to the environment. In the early years of her marriage, she was reportedly warm, approachable, and often engaged with staff in a friendly, informal way. Her energy and enthusiasm could lift the mood of the household, offering occasional moments of lightness amid the strict protocols. However, as her relationship with Andrew became strained and media scrutiny intensified, insiders say her behavior grew less predictable. Former aides described her as high-strung, quick to laugh one moment and quick to snap the next, her moods often reflecting the pressures she faced both personally and publicly. At times, Sarah acted as a stabilizing presence, stepping in to calm Andrew during his outbursts, an unusual dynamic in which she was one of the few people able to temper his anger. Yet even her interventions were sometimes tense and fraught, as the household itself had become a stage where personal temperaments, ego, and power struggles intersected in unpredictable ways. This delicate balance extended into the years after their divorce. Despite no longer being married, Andrew and Sarah continued to share Royal Lodge, bound by a mixture of history, habit, and practicality. The arrangement was unusual, with two former spouses living under the same roof, yet maintaining a careful, often performative coexistence. For years, they projected the image of a harmonious, divorced couple, presenting themselves to the public as amicable and united, even when tensions behind the scenes were high. That chapter of their lives, however, has now come to a definitive close. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been ordered to leave Royal Lodge, his departure marking a stark end to his long association with the property. He is set to relocate to a smaller, more modest residence on the Sandringham estate, still under the umbrella of royal oversight, but far removed from the expansive household he once commanded. Sarah Ferguson, meanwhile, faces an abrupt upheaval of her own. Having sold her £4 million home earlier this year under the assumption that she would continue residing at Royal Lodge indefinitely, she now must secure new accommodations. The residence that once provided her with security, familiarity, and a tangible connection to royal life is no longer available, leaving her to navigate a new chapter on her own terms. The household anecdotes paint a picture of a home dominated by control, ego, and rigid rules, where kindness and respect were secondary. Both Andrew and Sarah maintained the image of a happy divorced couple for years, but that illusion has now shattered. Andrew has lost his status, home, and royal protections, while Sarah faces uncertainty, stripped of privilege and security. Their daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, have reportedly distanced themselves, seeking refuge abroad to escape the ongoing media scrutiny. Beatrice divides her time between the United States and Europe, while Eugenie spends extended periods in Portugal with her family. The House of York now appears fractured, with each member retreating into a separate life. The former Duke and Duchess's departure from Royal Lodge signals more than the end of an era. It highlights how royal privilege can mask control, tension, and human flaws. The stories left behind reveal the pressures faced by staff and the complex dynamics of a household where appearances often masked reality.